Well, did you do anything special this summer?
Yeah.
Yeah?
I went to 2 birthday parties.
That was last night.
I know.
2 birthday parties last night alone.
Yeah.
Wow. That's exciting. Did you do anything special this summer?
Well, we went to Muskoka and Niagara Falls. This has been my second time water skiing at Muskoka.
Wow. Fabulous.
Something to say. And for the first time, I went jet skiing.
Jet skiing. Wow.
For
You're
the
going to have
first time.
You're going to have to teach me. Yeah, you're going to have to teach me how to do that. Well, I've got some pictures up here on the slide. I want you to look at this little boy. Okay. That's this little boy. Now, what do you think it might be hard for him to do? He has no legs at all.
Walk.
Might be hard to walk. Yeah. Do you think he could jet ski?
No.
No way. Well, look at what this little boy can do.
Wow.
He can ride a trike. He can waterboard. Play golf. What's he doing?
Ride a horse.
Yeah. He's taking part in track and field in a relay race. You thought he might not be able to walk. Look at that. Plays baseball. And in the winter, he even is a goalie in ice hockey. Isn't that amazing? So it just shows you what you can do if you really, really want to. There's always a way. Look at that. They find a way to go higher, to get to where they want to be. Some of them aren't so sure, but some of them are positive they can do it.
Wow.
And there's a mountain goat. I don't know how on earth it climbs up those mountains. It seems impossible.
And it's like right on the edge.
Yeah, and he's right on the edge. So we're going to be talking about a story, and you are all this September going to be talking about the story of David and Goliath. And they thought it was impossible to beat this big giant that was scaring everybody. And a little boy with a slingshot is going to be able to take on Goliath with God's help.
The first reading is Exodus 12, verses 1 to 14. And this is the time when God institutes the Passover and he gives the instructions. The Lord said to Moses and Aaron in the land of Egypt, "This month shall mark for you the beginning of months. It shall be the first month of the year for you. Tell the whole congregation of Israel that on the 10th of this month they are to take a lamb for each family, a lamb for each household. If a household is too small for a whole lamb, it shall join its closest neighbor in obtaining one. The lamb shall be divided in proportion to the number of people who will eat of it. Your lamb shall be without blemish, a year-old male. You may take it from the sheep or from the goats. You shall keep it until the 14th day of this month. Then the whole assembled congregation of Israel shall slaughter it at twilight. They shall take some of the blood and put it on the 2 doorposts and the lintel of the houses in which they eat it. They shall eat the lamb that same night. They shall eat it roasted over the fire with unleavened bread and bitter herbs. Do not eat any of it raw or boiled in water, but roast it over the fire with its head, legs, and inner organs. You shall let none of it remain until the morning. Anything that remains until morning you shall burn. This is how you shall eat it: your loins girded, your sandals on your feet, and your staff in your hand, and you shall eat it hurriedly. It is the Passover of the Lord. For I will pass through the land of Egypt that night, and I will strike down every firstborn in the land of Egypt, both human beings and animals. On all the gods of Egypt I will execute judgments. I am the Lord. The blood shall be a sign for you on the houses where you live. When I see the blood, I will pass over you, and no plague shall destroy you when I strike the land of Egypt. Our second reading is taken out of the Voices United, page 873. And I'll ask that you all find it, and it is Psalm 149. And what will happen is I will read the small print, and all of you are invited to read the bold print. And first Clive will play Refrain 1 once, and then we will join in singing it. Sing to God a new song. Give praise in the assembly of the faithful. Let Israel rejoice in its Maker. Let the children of Zion exalt in their sovereign. Let them praise God's name with dancing. Let them sing God's praise with tambourine and harp. For you, O God, take delight in your people. Crown the humble with victory. Let the faithful exult in their glory. Let them sing for joy as they feast. Let God's praise be on their lips, the two-edged sword in their hands, to bring the nations to justice and call to account the peoples, to bind their rulers with fetters, great ones with bonds of iron, to execute on them the sentence decreed. This is the glory of all God's saints. Hallelujah! Hallelujah! Thanks be to God for his work.
And welcome back, everybody. It's good to see you. It is Labor Day weekend, and it seems like an appropriate time to sort of do a little bit of exploration of both the Passover text and the connection with Labor Day and some of the meaning of it. So I want to start off, though, with a true event when Crete which is normally warm all year round, about 70 degrees, 72 year-round, perfect place to live. It was having a drought, severe drought one winter. The animals were starting to, run dry, and the rivers and water surrounding. And the priest of the church said that the only thing that might save them would be to have a litany of the rain. And so he told the people to go home, fast during the coming week, to believe that it could work, and to return the next Sunday for the litany of rain. So the people went home and they fasted during the week, and they came back to church in massive numbers. And the priest said, I'm not going to do this litany of the rain. You don't believe it. Go away. You don't believe. And they said, what do you mean we don't believe? We've fasted, we've come, we're ready. He says, well, where are your umbrellas? So this passage is an umbrella test, if you will. It's God's preparations. God doesn't do it all for us. God invites us to participate and prepare. Now, imagine being a slave in Egypt with a mighty Pharaoh, and you've got no power, and God's telling you, okay, get ready. Going to be your first fast food meal. I want you to eat it with your sandals on, ready to go. This is your last supper, if you will, your nourishment before you begin your exodus. It could be a long journey. Get ready. And so they have to go through that ritual of choosing the perfect sheep or goat, sharing it with another person in proportion to what they can eat, and communally participating, everyone, in this meal for the exodus, and then putting the blood above their doorposts. That's a call to believe in the God who's about to act only as they begin the journey. So, how many of you literally believe, by the way, the Exodus? A few of you. Do you know what? There's been some new research that has come to light. This is the way we usually see it in the movies, that God has parted this huge, massive, wall of water with the wind. But in truth, at this very spot in the Red Sea, there has been found an underwater, just under the surface of the water, land bridge. There is a natural land bridge at this point. So when that wind blew just enough to stop some of the water, this land that was underneath the surface began to appear. Now, we know that the Egyptians with their chariots and horses were pursuing the Israelite people, and right at this same location they have found some of the chariot wheels, several of them, human and horse bone remains, and they look exactly like, the ones that have been found in the tombs of some of the pharaohs. So here's that crossing. Now, King Solomon put up some pillars, it tells us in our scripture, in Isaiah of all things, to mark this miracle of the crossing of the Red Sea. And this fellow, Ron Wyatt, found the first one in 1978, but there were no inscriptions on it. And then he found the second one on the opposite side of the water that had the inscriptions that included the name for Egypt, for Pharaoh, for Edom, for death, for Yahweh, for Moses. It seems like possibly, the real deal. So you can see there's a mountainous kind of trek. You can't go very many places except through the mountainous trails, and then it launches out onto this beach that from there has that underwater bridge. So this is the route. They always used to think that it was crossing the Gulf of Suez, that part of the Red Sea. And they've now determined that no, the crossing was on this Gulf. Don't know if you believe it or not, but it's just an interesting possibility. Now, the freeing of slaves as our Passover story being chosen for Labor Day weekend is very apropos, because believe it or not, our Labor Day originated with this strike in support of Toronto's typographical union. They'd been off since March the 25th, about 9 months. And then the trade union association of the time, Toronto Trades Association, asked for 27 of the unions in 1872 to come and march in a parade in support of the typographical workers. And this is that parade. You all know of George Brown. One of the colleges named after him, well, he was a Toronto politician, and he was also editor for the Toronto Globe. And he ordered the police to charge the strikers with conspiracy. Believe it or not, that had been abolished for, decades in England, that you couldn't have a union, essentially. But it was still on the Canadian books, even though it had not been acted on in years. And because it was still on our law books, when he charged them with conspiracy, the police were mandated to act on it. And they arrested 24 of the labor union leaders. Now, in September 3rd, so, almost another 9 months later, there was another parade strike organized to protest the arrest of those 24 unionists. And finally, so that's how we get the connection with Labor Day, September 3rd in that case, with this protesting of the arrest. And this group, 2 years later, 7 unions marched in Ottawa and asked the Prime Minister, Sir John A. Macdonald, to please abolish the anti-union law from the Canadian law books. Is that interesting? That's the history, and we were one of the first to engage in that. And do you know what they were striking for, by the way? A 58-hour work week. That's almost slave labor that was happening then, and God caring about those conditions and empowering them to act. Now, in the United States, more than a decade later, 14 years later, there was a union strike there for the 8-hour work week. It was called the 8-hour movement. 8 hours of work, 8 hours of leisure, and 8 hours of sleep. And the police were dispersing one of the union gatherings, and someone threw a stick of dynamite at the police, and the police opened fire and massacred many of the protesters, and some of the police officers died as well, primarily from friendly fire. But this event is what sparked International Workers' Day, usually called May Day, because that's when this event happened. The United States didn't want to have people remember this riot. And so when some of them came up to participate in our sort of September Labor Day parades, they thought, that's a good idea, and decided to coincide with Canada. But 80 countries around the world, officially, and many more countries unofficially, have an International Workers' Day on May the 1st, and where there are marches and union speeches and protests for justice for the people. Just so you know, this is where this comes from. Now you might think, we don't have slavery anymore in Canada, but do you know that the United Nations has declared that human trafficking and slavery is the second most lucrative crime industry in the world? Drug trade is number one. Human trafficking of women and men and children, predominantly women and children, predominantly for the sex trade, is, the second most lucrative industry. Third is gun smuggling. And so the United Nations declared human trafficking to be a criminal offense in 2000, that recent, 2000. Canada was a little bit slow to get off the mark, and it's only since 2005 that it's been a criminal act to be, a pimp or to buy people and sell them. And it's happening right here in Toronto. So he's a lawyer, a professor of law, that has taken on this campaign, because while the United States has removed escort services from the Craigslist on the internet, Canada continues to have it, and most of the human trafficking is happening via the internet. So he told a story that right here in Richmond Hill, a 14-year-old girl was being sold by the hour over the internet. Another one was purchased for $65,000 by a pimp because he can earn $280,000 a year per child. They don't want to let them go at the end. They threaten them if they don't. So he's written a book on Canada's situation and asking us to try to encourage the government to remove escort services from Craigslist so that it can't be on the internet, to begin to educate. In 2 weeks' time, unfortunately the same day that Marty Tyndall is coming here, there's the second annual Walk for Freedom in Toronto. But there's always hope. Look at what Free the Children has done. Remember Craig Kielburger? Age 12. Read an article, a headline only in the newspaper, about a battered child murdered in India who was also age 12 because he wasn't working hard enough and fast enough. There are now, this is Children for Children. That was in 1995 he began. He'd never even gone on a subway, and he took a 7-week tour of Southeast Asia to witness firsthand what was happening with children who were in slave labor, essentially, and to film document it and to bring it back to show to children in his school. There are now 350,000 children each year who are part of this organization, getting training and public speaking. They've got more than 200,000 health and school kits for kids. They've opened 650 schools. They've enabled 55,000 children to get an education. And they've raised in 15 years, $15 million. That's pretty impressive for a 12-year-old. And we think these challenges we face are impossible, whether in our global situation of climate change or in our personal life of the struggles we face. And this whole text to me is a reminder to believe, as the Jewish people did. They'd enact this every year as a reminder of what God calls them to do and what God can do through us, especially collectively. Here they are, Free the Children, out lobbying. And now you've heard recently about Good Guide, an app for your iPhone or BlackBerry where you can scan a barcode of a product, from shampoo to clothing to toys, and it'll give you a grading, overall grading a health grading, like is there any mercury or lead in it? An environmental grading of is it, beneficial for the environment or not? And a social responsibility, is it fair trade? And you can actually now have a choice about what to buy. And there's hope on so many fronts. They've discovered how mice that have had a spinal cord severing of the nerve learn to walk again. They used to think that they sort of regrew the nerve the way the liver regrows, and they found that no. The mice are able to use some of the shorter, smaller nerves that are around the area of where it's been severed, and recommission them for a new task, retrain them, like a new career counseling, and put them into action. And they think that they're going to be able to learn from this to enable people to walk again. And then if you go on the Science Diary, it's just a fantastic website, but it has Tom Rees, who developed Parkinson's disease. He was a podiatrist, and he literally was given a vision of these glasses that could help him to move. And with the help of sort of an electrical engineer, they've developed these eyeglasses that shines light through the lens, sort of like an LED light, laser light, that sort of shows the person where to walk. And they're able to go from sort of just shuffling to, when they put on these glasses, being able to walk normally. That dramatic a difference. And that's available right now from this person that was given this vision and people that could make it happen. I want you to dream again about what might be possible. Our question for this month is, what is one thing in the world, whether it be the world of your life or the greater world of our church, the community, or the whole world, that God wants us to help change and to believe it's possible.